At my son's graduation, I was told to stand in the back. That was the first thing. No greeting, no welcome. Just a firm voice from an usher I didn't recognize, holding a clipboard like it meant more than I did. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said, avoiding eye contact. The front row's reserved. I nodded, unsure what to say. I looked past him and saw them sitting there, comfortable and unbothered. My ex-husband, Damien, his new wife, Brielle, her sister, and a couple of his cousins I barely remembered from 10 years ago. All of them dressed like it was a gala instead of a graduation. All of them sitting where I had been promised I'd be. Brielle turned her head and met my eyes. She didn't smile. She leaned toward Damien, but her words were loud enough for me to hear. "He doesn't want her here. Let her stand in the back." I froze. For a second, my body didn't know whether to move forward or turn around and leave. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my teeth. My sister Maritza stepped forward. "Say that again. Go on, I dare you." I reached out and grabbed her arm gently. "Number not today," I said. Maritza looked at me like I was losing my mind. "You're really gonna let her say that to you? On Caleb's day?" I nodded once. "It is his day. That's exactly why I won't make a scene." My eyes moved across the auditorium. Hundreds of chairs, balloons tied to aisle ends, students in their blue gowns lining up backstage. My stomach twisted. I had waited for this day for 18 years, through scraped knees and spelling bees, broken heaters and long shifts that turned into double shifts. Through nights I went to sleep hungry because we only had enough food for him. Through birthdays where I wrapped dollar store toys and made them feel like treasures. I stood in the back. I stood because I didn't want Caleb's day to start with tension or confrontation. I stood because he deserved peace. But the silence burned. Every clap for a student felt like a reminder. Every camera flash from the front row felt like it belonged to someone else's life, someone who got to be proud in public. My chest ached, not just from being overlooked, but from knowing someone else wanted me to be invisible. Brielle wasn't his mother. She didn't hold him through nights of fever. She didn't teach him how to tie a tie for his first school dance. She didn't sit at kitchen tables with overdue bills and still make sure he had everything he needed for science fair. I did that. I did all of that. But she had the front row seat, and I had the back wall. Maritza stood beside me, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "He told you he saved you a seat," she whispered. "He looked you in the eye and said that." "He did," I said. "Then what the hell is this?" I couldn't answer. I didn't know if Caleb knew what was happening. I didn't know if he was backstage, focused on the moment, unaware that his mother was being quietly removed from the picture. Or worse, what if he did know? What if he let this happen? My throat tightened. I blinked fast to keep the tears from rising. Not now, not when this was supposed to be a celebration. I reached into my purse for tissues and brushed my fingers across a photo I kept in my wallet. Me and Caleb taken at his 10th birthday party. I was wearing a paper crown he had insisted I keep on the whole day. His arm was around my neck. His eyes were full of mischief and trust. His cheeks still had that softness little boys have before they start growing into men. I kept my hand there for a second, grounding myself. The lights dimmed a little. The music changed. The announcer's voice came on, calling students to take their seats. The ceremony was beginning. I straightened my spine and lifted my chin. I didn't have a seat. But I had a reason to be here, a reason no one in that front row could take from me. My son. The morning of Caleb's graduation felt like Christmas, but heavier. I woke up before the sun, before my alarm, before even the birds outside had started singing. I laid there in the silence of my small apartment, staring at the ceiling. A part of me couldn't believe the day had finally come. 18 years. It all boiled down to this. I got up and moved quietly, careful not to wake Maritza, who had crashed on my couch the night before to help me get ready. My nerves were too loud for sleep anyway. I made coffee, the good kind I saved for special days, and stood barefoot in the kitchen with the warm mug pressed to my hands. The light from the street outside filtered through the blinds. I could already picture him, Caleb in that cap and gown, smiling, tall, confident, so grown. The little boy who used to curl up beside me after nightmares was now about to walk across a stage and step into the next chapter of his life. And somehow, I'd gotten him here. I pulled the graduation invitation from the fridge door and ran my fingers over the embossed lettering. Ms. Lena Moreno is cordially invited to celebrate the commencement of Caleb James Moreno. When he handed it to me, he looked so proud. He had smiled and said, "Front row, Ma." I already told them, "You're sitting up close." That was Caleb. Always thoughtful. Always trying to make things right, even when his world had been pulled in different directions. The day he told me he wanted to invite his father, I swallowed my pride and nodded. "Of course," I said. "He's still your dad." It had been years since Damien left. He'd remarried, moved out of state, and only recently started calling again. I never spoke badly about him to Caleb. I figured life would show its own truths. Still, when he said Damien and Brielle would be coming, I won't lie, it stung. But I told myself it didn't matter. The important thing was Caleb graduating. I could handle a few awkward smiles. I didn't expect a warm reunion. I certainly didn't expect to be welcomed, but I never imagined being pushed out. Back in my bedroom, I zipped up the soft blue dress I had ironed the night before. It wasn't fancy, but it looked elegant. Maritza walked in, holding 2 mugs. "You nervous?" she asked. "I'm more overwhelmed," I admitted, "like something's building." She looked at me for a second. "It's just graduation, Lena. You've earned this. Don't let them rattle you." "I'm not worried about them," I said. "I just want Caleb to feel like I'm with him. I don't want to be a shadow today." "You never are," she said. Not to him. We drove to the school in my old Toyota. I had cleaned it the day before, even though I knew no one would see it but us. I don't know. Something about the day made me want everything to feel right, even the little things. Maritza played soft music as I stared out the window, counting the blocks like heartbeats. When we pulled into the packed lot, I caught a glimpse of Damien's sleek black SUV, polished, expensive, loud. He was already there. My chest tightened a little. I breathed in slow. "I'm okay," I whispered. "You don't have to be," Maritza replied, "but you do have to show up." We stepped out, and the air was thick with excitement. Parents taking pictures, kids laughing, balloons floating above heads. I felt something in my chest stir, pride. Pure and powerful. This was our finish line. I remembered the nights I sat at our wobbly kitchen table, helping Caleb study for exams while eating ramen noodles. I remembered the early mornings I left a note on the counter because I had to start my shift before he woke up. The times he offered to skip field trips because he knew money was tight. And still, he never complained. He never asked for anything more than what I could give. And today, he was graduating. I straightened my shoulders and fixed my hair as we approached the auditorium doors. The future was on the other side of that building. So was my son. I had no idea the moment I walked in that everything I thought I knew about this day was about to change. The moment we stepped inside the auditorium, I felt it. That shift in energy, like someone had pressed mute on a song I was meant to hear. I scanned the room, looking for our seats, the ones Caleb said were saved for us. "Row A, left side," he'd texted me. "You'll see the little white card with your name on it." But there were no cards, just people. Row after row already filled. Laughter, hugs, parents leaning in to whisper to their graduates. The front row, our row, was fully occupied. And there, right in the middle, sat Damien and Brielle. He wore a dark tailored suit, like this was a board meeting. She wore a champagne-colored dress, the kind people wear when they're sure everyone's watching. Her blonde hair was twisted into an elegant bun, not a strand out of place. She looked completely at ease, completely in control. I froze. My heart dropped into my stomach. A young usher in a black polo approached us. "Ma'am," he said politely, "do you need help finding a spot?" I nodded. "Yes, my son said he reserved 2 front-row seats for us, left side." He looked at his clipboard and frowned. "Those seats have already been filled. They were claimed by the Carter family." I stared at him. I'm Caleb's mother. His eyes widened slightly. He looked back at the clipboard, then toward the front row. His expression shifted to discomfort. "I'm really sorry, ma'am. There's standing room in the back." The words felt like a slap. Before I could speak, Maritza stepped forward. "Are you serious right now? She's the kid's mother. You think she came here dressed like this to stand?" He glanced around nervously. Look, I'm just going by what I was told. I can't move people who are already seated." From the front row, Brielle turned and made eye contact with me. Her face was calm, smug. Then she leaned in toward Damien and said, not loud, but just enough. He doesn't want her here. Let her stand. This isn't her place anymore. I felt the words slice through me. Not her place. As if I was just a former role. Maritza bristled. Oh, hell no, say that again, Barbie, I dare you. I reached for her arm. Not now, I whispered. This isn't about her, it's about Caleb. But she? I know. But if we cause a scene, he'll remember that. Not the diploma, not the walk, just the drama. I'm not giving her that power. Maritza clenched her jaw but stepped back. We walked slowly toward the back of the room, heels clicking against the polished floor, heads turning. A few parents smiled politely. Most didn't look at us at all. We stood against the back wall beneath a dim exit sign. There were no programs left, no chairs, just concrete and shadows. I couldn't help it. I looked toward Caleb's row. He wasn't seated yet. Maybe he was still backstage. Maybe he didn't know. Or maybe he did. That was the worst part. The doubt. The whisper in my mind asking, what if he let this happen? What if he chose them? I shook the thought away, but it stuck, like smoke in my lungs. Maritza leaned in. You want to leave? I thought about it. I thought about turning around, walking out that door, going home and pretending this day never happened. But then I remembered Caleb at 12, when I couldn't afford a new backpack for school. He took his old one, patched the straps with duct tape, and said, "It still works, Ma. I don't need a new one." I remembered the night he sat on my bed after Damien missed another birthday and whispered, "You're the one who shows up." Number I wouldn't leave. I had shown up for 18 years. I wasn't going to stop now. I looked down at the stage. The faculty was gathering. The ceremony was minutes from starting. From the back of the room, I stood still, hands clasped, chest tight. All around me, families were taking selfies, clapping, cheering, but I stood quietly watching and waiting, a mother erased from the picture, but not from her son's story, not yet. I wanted to leave. As the auditorium buzzed around me with excitement, I stood frozen in place, arms folded tightly, trying to hold in everything I was feeling. I watched smiling families posing for pictures, arms around their graduates, dressed in vibrant caps and gowns. I watched fathers beam with pride and mothers cry quietly in the front row. I saw what I had always pictured for myself, just not from where I was standing. And for a moment, I let the bitterness rise. It didn't feel fair. I had raised Caleb without help. Damien paid what the courts told him to, but that was just money. I was the one who showed up at every parent-teacher conference, who sat in waiting rooms during Caleb's asthma attacks, who printed worksheets from the library when we couldn't afford tutoring. I was the one who stood by him, year after year, while his father built a new life, a new marriage, a new version of the truth. And now, here I was, tucked into the shadows of the auditorium like a stranger who didn't belong. I turned to Maritza. Maybe I should go. She looked at me in disbelief. What are you talking about? I don't want to ruin this for him. I don't want him to feel torn between two sides. He already has enough pressure. Maritza shook her head. And what about you, Lena? You're not some guest. You're his mother. If anyone has a right to be here, it's you. My hands were trembling. I could feel my throat tighten, tears threatening again. I didn't want to cry, not in front of these people, not in front of Brielle. Then I remembered something Caleb had said to me just last week. We were sitting on the couch, surrounded by boxes of dorm stuff he'd ordered online. He looked up from a checklist and said, "You know what I'm most proud of?" I smiled, thinking he'd say his GPA or the scholarship he got. Instead, he said, "That you did this alone." And somehow, I never felt like I was missing anything. I'd laughed through my tears that night, but I felt those words now like armor sliding back into place. "You're right," I said to Maritza, my voice steadier. "I'm staying." Maritza nodded. "Good, because I was about to drag you back in here anyway." We stood silently for a while. The principal stepped up to the podium. The band played a few bars of the school anthem. Names were being called, cheers rising and falling like waves. I tried to scan the stage, hoping for a glimpse of Caleb, but the students were still out of view, waiting, just like us. My eyes drifted back toward the front row. Damien was scrolling through his phone. Brielle was flipping her hair, smiling at something her sister whispered. Neither of them looked back. Not once. And yet, I didn't care anymore. They could have the seats, they could have the show. I had the memories. I had the late nights, the scraped knees, the tearful talks, the laughter in small kitchens, the victories no one else saw. They had front row tickets. I had a front row heart. That's when the music changed. A soft hush fell over the crowd. The students began walking in, a sea of blue gowns, gold tassels, the kind of moment that makes you catch your breath without meaning to. And then I saw him, Caleb. His walk was calm and steady, but his eyes searched the crowd. He looked left, then right. For a second, he looked directly at the front row. Damien raised a hand to wave, but Caleb didn't return it. Then slowly, his gaze moved toward the back of the auditorium, past the rows of clapping families, past the flash of cameras, and he saw me. Our eyes locked. His mouth didn't move, but I saw it written all over his face. "I see you, Mom." He kept walking, but he didn't look away. In that moment, I felt everything shift. All the doubt, the sadness, the anger. I let it go. I didn't need a seat to be his mother. I didn't need to be in the spotlight. I just needed to be here. Because love doesn't need a reserved sign, it just needs to be present. And I was. They called his name. Caleb James Moreno. The applause started, polite and expected, like every other student who came before him. But something in me shifted when I heard it. Not just because it was my son's name, but because of how steady the announcer's voice was, like it carried weight. Caleb stepped forward. He moved across the stage with that same calm presence he's always had. Not flashy, not trying to perform, just solid, focused. A quiet confidence that I knew came from years of walking through life with nothing handed to him and everything earned. My hands gripped the edge of my purse, my heart pounding. I didn't know what was about to happen. I only knew something was different. He reached the center of the stage and took the diploma from the principal's hand. Cameras flashed. There was a brief pause as the photographer asked him to turn and smile. He did, but not toward the front row. He turned to face the crowd. He took a step closer to the microphone. There was no announcement, no program note. It wasn't planned. He just did it. He adjusted the mic, cleared his throat, and looked out across the sea of faces. "I know I'm just supposed to take this and walk off," he said. His voice rang clear, calm. "But if you'll give me a minute, there's someone I need to thank." The room quieted. Whispers faded. Even the principal looked surprised. Caleb raised his diploma slightly, not like a trophy, but like an offering. His hands didn't shake. His eyes were steady. "This," he said, "is for the woman who raised me alone." I stopped breathing. He kept going. "This is for the woman who worked 2 jobs and still made it to every school play, for the woman who skipped meals so I could eat, who stayed up late to help me study, even when her eyes were bloodshot from her shift. This is for the woman who sat through birthdays where my dad never showed up and still made me feel like the world hadn't let me down." People started to turn. Heads shifted toward the back of the auditorium. Caleb didn't break eye contact. He didn't look at the front row, not once. "She's standing in the back of this room right now," he said, "because someone told her she didn't belong up front. But let me be clear. There is no one who belongs here more than my mother, Lena Moreno." The applause didn't start right away. It was like the whole room had to absorb what just happened. Then it came. First from a few rows near the middle, then the sides, then the front. One by one, people started rising to their feet, hands clapping, some even cheering. I heard one woman whisper behind me, "That's real love." Maritza grabbed my arm. "He did that, for you." I couldn't speak. My mouth was trembling, and all I could do was nod, tears sliding down my face faster than I could stop them. Brielle sat frozen. I saw her jaw tighten, her posture stiff. Damien stared straight ahead, face unreadable, hands in his lap. But none of it mattered, because my son had stood on that stage and told the truth. He had seen everything, every sacrifice, every invisible effort, and in one moment he made it visible to everyone else. Caleb stepped down from the stage. He didn't go toward his father. He walked to the back of the auditorium, right to me, through the sea of people now watching him like he was the only person in the room. He stopped in front of me, diploma still in his hand, and said, This is yours as much as it is mine. I pulled him into my arms, and for a second, it was just the two of us again, like it had always been, not hidden, not erased, seen. In that moment, I didn't care where I had been seated. I didn't care what they thought. I didn't even care who was watching, because my son stood for me, and the whole room stood with him. The auditorium emptied slowly, but I stayed in the back, still holding Caleb's diploma in my hands. I couldn't bring myself to leave just yet. It felt like if I moved too fast, the moment might disappear, like a dream I didn't want to wake up from. Maritza stood beside me, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her cardigan. "Well," she said with a shaky smile, "that's one for the books." I smiled. I hadn't stopped smiling since he hugged me. Caleb was at the front now, talking with friends, shaking hands with teachers. His gown hung loosely off one shoulder, and the tassel on his cap had fallen in front of his eyes. He looked so grown up, so sure of himself, but still mine. Brielle and Damien stood near the stage, a few feet apart. She said something to him. He didn't respond. His arms were crossed, his expression tight. They didn't come over. They didn't congratulate Caleb in front of me. They didn't even say goodbye. And that was fine, because this day, this moment, had nothing to do with them anymore. When Caleb finished talking with his friends, he walked back toward me, still holding his cap. His smile was soft, tired, but proud. "Hey," he said. "Hey," I answered, feeling the weight of everything I wanted to say, but not needing to. He looked down at the diploma in my hands. "You kept it." "Of course I did. You okay?" I nodded. "I'm more than okay." We walked outside into the fading sunlight, the sky streaked in soft pink and orange. It was that magic hour. Quiet, golden, full of the kind of peace that settles over you after a storm. We reached my car, and I opened the trunk so he could put his gown away. He paused, then turned to me. "I didn't plan to say anything up there," he said. "It just didn't feel right to walk away without thanking you." My throat tightened. "You didn't owe me anything." "I do," he said. "I owe you everything." I didn't try to respond. I just reached out and took his hand. It was bigger now, stronger than I remembered, but it was still the same hand that used to reach for mine in parking lots and movie theaters and when the world felt too big. "You know," I said, "when you were little and you'd get scared or sick or just sad, I'd always tell you I'd stand with you no matter what, even when no one else did." "I remember," he said. "Well, today, you stood for me." He smiled again, softer this time. "You've been standing for me my whole life. It was time I stood back." In that moment, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just pride. It was peace. Peace that I didn't need to fight anymore to prove my place in his life. He had claimed it for me, publicly, boldly. The rest of the night moved slowly in the best way. We picked up pizza, went back to our apartment, and ate on paper plates at the kitchen table where I used to help him with spelling tests. He didn't want to party. He didn't want to go out. He just wanted to be home with me and Maritza. He stayed over that night, fell asleep on the couch with the TV still playing and his cap sitting on the coffee table next to an empty root beer can. I stood in the doorway and watched him for a moment, remembering 100 nights like this one when he was small. Except now, he was a man who hadn't let the world rewrite the truth of who raised him. The next morning, as he packed up his things to head to a small get-together with his friends, he kissed me on the cheek and said, "You made me who I am, Mom. Don't let anyone ever tell you different." And I won't. Because I learned something that day. Love doesn't need a front row seat. It doesn't ask for applause or recognition. It just shows up every single day, quietly, steadily, with open arms and no conditions. And sometimes, when the world least expects it, that love gets the standing ovation it deserves. That day changed something in me. Not because I was seen by a crowd, but because I was finally seen by the one person who mattered most. If you've ever felt overlooked, uninvited, or made to feel like you didn't belong, remember this. Love doesn't need permission to matter, and the truth always finds its way to the light. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you in any way, I hope you'll give this video a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment. I'd love to know what part stayed with you. And if you believe in stories that honor real love, real strength, and real people, subscribe to the channel. There's so much more I want to share with you. Until next time, take care of your heart and stand for the people who've stood for you.